Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us to lead, learn, and laugh. I'm Michael Bull, your host to the world of commercial real estate. We appreciate connecting with you and hearing your comments on the show. Our phone number, email, and social media contacts, and our pigeon carrier access. It's all available at the Commercial Real Estate Show website, commercialrealestateteshow.com. Well, today we're going to discuss senior housing. Senior housing is an interesting industry with baby boomers coming of age. The sector also has the aspect of the care and services side of the business. We'll look at current performance, we'll look at the factors impacting the space, and peek into the show's crystal ball to see what we might expect moving forward. Please welcome my first guest, George Yadanak, founder and publisher, Senior Housing News. Senior Housing News covers the senior housing industry with a national reach of over 30,000 professionals. George, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here this morning.
Well, thank you, George. And to get us started, I hear that baby boomers are all getting a little older. What are the demographics that are expected to impact senior housing?
Sure, Michael. I think, the statistic that's thrown out regularly today in the senior housing industry is that, over 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65 on a daily basis, which really points to demand growing over time. And I think really for the senior housing industry, there's a large population coming down the pipe in the next, I'd call it 10 to 20 years, that the industry is going to have to look at how to service those customers and the various demographics associated with them, both socioeconomic and other factors that are part of that large population coming to the end of their working years and into retirement, and that presents some opportunities and challenges for various senior housing developers, owners, and operators as well.
Right. It's an interesting time ahead of us, isn't it? And this increased demand, what do you expect it to do to the various senior housing property types?
Well, I think, you've got a couple, broad types, starting with independent living, moving towards assisted living, and then out into skilled nursing. And then what we're seeing is kind of segments into each of those areas that would fit, those baby boomers that are coming ahead, in the years to come. I think assisted living continues to grow at a very, very fast pace. It continues to add more dementia care and Alzheimer's care as part of that product offering. And what we're seeing on the independent living area is more products and services being brought into these independent living communities through programs associated with home and community-based services, which is part of the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, and you mentioned Affordable Care Act. Do you expect that to have a big impact on this industry, or is that still unknown?
Overall, it will have an impact on what kind of products and services are offered, within the senior housing continuum. I think from just a bricks and mortar standpoint of the actual living component of housing, it shouldn't have too much of a strong effect, at least in the next coming few years. But over time, I think that will increase in importance more as the housing aspect is more integrated into the care delivery aspect of it. And I think the jury's still out, but I think more change is coming down the road here.
Okay, and you mentioned bricks and mortar, and so what does make a good location for these senior living type properties? For developers, it's a certain set of characteristics, and then for, residents, it's another set of characteristics. But for developers, really, it's a combination of supply and demand in the local market. Many industry participants believe that senior living is a very, very local product, and even regional may be a stretch in some cases, meaning that the ties to the community and the services and the businesses around the senior housing community is really key to the success. Obviously warmer weather climates, as retirees are heading south, is a consistently growing trend that we see. But developers and investors are finding opportunities all over the U.S., really based upon studying careful data and metrics of associated supply and demand in the various local markets.
Okay, so it has more to do with supply and demand and what kind of competitors you have around you, more so than kind of being near where these folks are living now?
I think it's a balance of that to a certain extent. I think there's a lot of people that would like to move to various locations, but I think what we're finding more often than not, at least from the press side, is seniors are looking to stay closer to friends and family as much as they can, rather than picking up and moving their lives to a completely different place. So it's really, delivering product to the local market that provides access to friends and family, but then also provides some great care and some great housing options as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Home is home, right? And we're speaking with George Yedinak with Senior Housing News. And George, how has the level of care in senior housing changed over the last few years?
The level of care, Michael, over time has increased in the different segments, as I referenced a little bit earlier. Independent living used to be very much just senior apartments, and still is in some cases today. But what we're finding is owners and operators are reaching out to various third parties in these communities to bring in services on a bi-weekly or 3 or 4 times a week basis, for various care, rehab, product and service deliveries, to really allow them to live independently but have some convenience of the services coming to them, which has been great. And I think, the other part where care has changed has been the assisted living spectrum. What we're seeing with the various owners and operators that we talk to of assisted living is that people are waiting longer and longer to move into assisted living communities until, it's almost too late sometimes. There are such high levels of acuity or sickness that people are coming into these assisted living communities, which is creating some risk for the owners and operators when someone comes in and is a lot sicker than they may have been 10 years ago, when looking at the demographic as a whole. And I think what some people are trying to do is move towards what I would call an assisted living light, where it's a balance between independent living and assisted living to kind of ease that transition so that there's not an abrupt show up at the door having 1 or 2 chronic illnesses that are a lot more challenging to attack, on an immediate basis as part of that care level.
Yeah, that's a very interesting side of the senior housing space. I mean, the level of service and, it's a lot more of a business than a lot of other real estate types, isn't it?
It is, and I think one of the really neat aspects from my perspective is the balance of that business and real estate aspect of it, because you look at senior housing as a whole, and there are all the tenants of a commercial real estate property and the challenges associated with that, and then you layer on the care delivery aspect of it, and it's really kind of two pieces together, which really makes it different than most other commercial real estate property types and classes. And I think, having some level of expertise on the care delivery side with a great owner-operator, and then having the individual investor or REIT as the owner of the real estate really presents some unique opportunities going forward today.
And how many of the REITs that own these types of properties are actually running the business side?
Very few. What we're seeing is really a kind of a splitting of duties, keep the separation of church and state, for lack of a better term, where the REITs are really focusing on, the capital allocation and the asset management associated with commercial real estate, and letting the owners and operators operate things on a daily basis, because it's really a focus of expertise. Who knows, best, for lack of a better term, and really letting the professionals in each segment do what they do well, and then having kind of a synergy of alignment of philosophies, of operating, policies and procedures and risk management associated with growing these portfolios, more as a partnership rather than, you do the real estate and you do the care delivery.
Yeah, that's a very interesting part of this sector. That if you don't know about the care and delivery, you might not want to even get into the real estate side of it. Well, George, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you being on the show with us. Thanks
so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure being on.
Thank you. And for more information from George and Senior Housing News, visit seniorhousingnews.com. Well, more on senior housing headed your way. I'm Michael Bull. You're listening to the Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Atlanta Office Liquidators, new and used furniture liquidators, France Media, publications and conferences, and Bull Realty Commercial Brokerage, a great place to do business. For more information on these companies or to access additional podcasts, videos, or blogs, visit commercialrealestateshow.com.